All right, so I wanted to start out today. What the heck was that?
What was that?
It was like Danny couldn't wait to scoot. He had to scoot right 3, 2, 1, and then Danny
He does this
scoots.
every time.
I want to rewind that back to see him like kind of freak out.
It should be on the recording because literally
Why?
I'm like 3, 2, 1, record, and then and he's like,
He had so much opportunity to scoot, and he chooses right then. Didn't be like, now's as good a time as any.
Trav C remembers when we recorded earlier. He does it every time without fail. You'll be like, because I have to. Before I was like, we need 10 seconds of silence so I can remove background noise when I'm editing the audio. And so I'm like 10 seconds of silence now, and then that's when he decides he's just like gonna go. Like sniff. It's like I'm like, come on! Now we have to start over.
I know.
My
You kind of
timing
ruined
is
my.
impeccable. What can I say?
You kind of ruined my beginning there, but
Sorry,
I'll
Trav.
just do it
Continue
anyway.
your beginning. And
It
Well,
was his
say-
new
Keep
exciting
podcast,
beginning,
everybody.
too.
I know.
He's so excited to introduce his
I was
new
just
way.
gonna say I wanted to start today with a joke that is themed around what we will be talking about today. And that joke is, why are there no cats on Mars? Give up.
because
Wait. Give me a second. Just freaking rush it out there.
No cat.
Yeah. Why are there no cats on Mars? Because curiosity killed them, and that's what will happen to us if we go to Mars.
Did you make that up yourself?
No, I Googled it. There's also others.
is
A
it
lot
like,
of them-
is there like, is it the Curiosity rover that they're talking about?
Yeah,
Danny,
obviously.
yes. That's obvious. What other curiosity would it be? The actual curiosity?
Well, I mean,
we're
it's
curious
too-
about Mars. If we go up there, we'll die.
It's two-pronged, right? Because one hand, there's the saying, curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's
No,
a rover, which is also known as a dog.
Stop. No.
Dogs
Oh.
don't like cats.
Okay, did you think about what you just had to walk through to get to the dog bit. Do you think it's that one? Do you think it's the dog bit that was intended?
See, because there's other ones. It's like Freddie Mercury, Venus Williams, and Bruno Mars walk into a bar, but they didn't plan it that way.
Oh! I thought you were going to say, but they didn't invite Earth.
That would make no sense. All right. Well,
Anyway,
today,
do you wanna say
welcome
what
everybody.
people are even watching if they were curious. Welcome to the Q Code podcast.
Yes, welcome to the Q. I was getting to that, but welcome to the Q Code podcast, everybody. Your hosts, the Travi and the Barnes Bros, back at it again this week, continuing on our series of conspiracies with Alan this week, talking about stuff on Mars.
Mars.
So we're going to get real into that, and that's why you can kind of tell our backgrounds. Danny's is just generic.
Now this is a
That's
genuine
just a stereotypical Asian.
Oh, that's rude.
Stereotypical.
Oh boy.
I mean, just
Dad,
Probably should start this whole one over.
When we travel here, is that what you're saying? Huh?
Do
have-
Asians have eyes
alien
like
visa?
those? I don't think so.
It's like the exact opposite, but never mind. Let's go.
Anyway, so yes, super stoked about it. So if you're thinking about not staying tuned, stay tuned.
Nice sell.
But
I think that'll keep them.
But we do have a quick question today. Daniel, you're the one that put the quick question together. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
So my quick question of the day is, do you FaceTime? And I'm assuming anybody with an Apple phone or iPhone would FaceTime, but I won't exclude others because what do people use on Androids? I don't even know what those people use.
Skype.
Is it a Skype?
Maybe Skype. I think Facebook now has a platform. They have like a messenger type of video chat, whatever. But what do you guys? Do you guys all use FaceTime?
Well, yeah, I have an iPhone, so it's the easiest.
What's
This
your,
is the question that's meant to loosen the room. Is
Usually,
if
he
we
has
video
like a-
chat while we're video chatting.
I'm kind of. That's the reason
You
why I wanted him
guys
to bring it in because
video chat?
I'm not super sure why that is the. That's the question.
Let me loosen the
I
room
was
a
just
little by
curious.
talking
I
about
was just
you.
curious if you guys FaceTime. That's all. We can move.
Do you want to FaceTime sometime? Are you like lonely during the day? You're like,
Guys,
I could
FaceTime.
really use somebody to come FaceTime.
There is one
No,
that's
I mean,
called
so-
House Party that
Oh, yeah,
you
I've
can
heard
all
this.
get together and play games.
Yeah, I heard that's
So-
becoming like very,
Like board
very
games?
popular. But it's like
it's
meant for.
there's like 4 games that you can play. So some of them are like your kind of like multiple choice questions based on different categories. You have that heads up game that Ellen DeGeneres did or does, and then
Not
a couple of
Heads Up
other
7 Up?
games. No, it's the one where like basically somebody holds up a phone right
Oh,
here
yeah,
and
yeah.
has an item, and then you have to describe that for the person to guess, but you can't say the word.
Just for the
Oh.
record, we came up with that game like 5 years ago for a commercial. Just saying.
Amazon?
It was one of the commercials I wrote. We had a bunch of because they had a 7-pack of tablets you could buy, like a Fire tablet. It was like $250, and you got like 7 of them. It's like 5, I don't know, 5, maybe it was 6-pack actually. And we were like, what can you do with 6 tablets? And that was like the joke of the commercial. And one of the scenes was a bunch of people with the tablets strapped to their head, and he had like an armadillo on it. And he's like, am I an animal? And that was like the clip. So I just want to say, like, maybe Ellen saw it on TV. Maybe
Was it on TV?
Yeah. Yeah, it was on TV.
You're saying she stole your idea.
Look, I don't want to say that on camera, but I'm just saying it's a coincidence.
I knew that Ellen
That-
DeGeneres was shady.
The coincidence that I had a commercial that had that exact same thing in it. That's now a popular game made by Ellen. So before Ellen had it. So
Well
then.
done. So
we also had
the
a
whole point
selfie
of this
camera.
question is because in this day and age, I mean, I think we're recording this podcast on a Zoom meeting, but I think anybody who hadn't used it much before has started to learn how to use Trav and making fun of me.
Which one?
I was making fun of it.
No, I thought Trav Cole was.
Oh,
How?
that's nice because I was making fun of you and you
I'm
didn't see it.
pretty sure Trav Cole wasn't
What
doing
did I do?
anything.
I
Did you get us
scratched my
mixed up,
nose.
Danny? Did you get us mixed up again? This is offensive.
Yeah.
We're different people.
But
Oh, I thought you were, because I was doing this, I thought you were doing it.
No, I scratched my nose.
All right. Anyway, this is neither here nor there. But
It is.
because video chat is so prevalent now and it's in the forefront of all of our minds, did you guys read the article that I sent you guys? It was in the show notes.
Danny, I opened the show notes 5 minutes before.
I opened them
And-
early today, but then I closed them right away. So
So,
I skimmed them though.
Yeah, I skimmed them. I didn't even see that link.
I said Mars, and then I said FaceTime. Do you use FaceTime? What a weird question. And then I closed it.
well, do you guys know what's going on in Japan right now?
Coronavirus.
No.
Oh, he's
There's
right.
a lot of
Alan's
that
right.
going on.
Yeah.
That virus.
That is partially what's happening. But no, they have this aquarium, and they have in the aquarium, in one of the different tanks, they have these things called spotted garden eels. And suddenly now that everyone's on quarantine, no one's going to visit the animals of the aquarium. And so these eels have become super shy and scared of humans. So anytime the trainers come walk by to try and feed them or do anything with them, they bury their heads in the sand. And that's how they react, because they forgot how to react to humans. And then, so basically what they did, and I'll read you guys this little excerpt. Is that how you say it, Alan?
Not even gonna answer that. Nobody answer him.
Just move on.
That's another thing he does. Is that how you say it? And then he just randomly chooses one of the people's names. Alan. Could have easily been Trav M.
But no, so according to the California Academy of Sciences, spotted garden eels are often mistaken for plants because of their slim size and the way they burrow their partially into the seafloor in order to sweep up passing zooplankton. In response, the aquarium is launching a 3-day emergency event starting on May 3rd, known as the Face Showing Festival, with the goal of not forgetting the existence of humans. It is inviting people to call the aquarium's dedicated account through an iPad or iPhone, and once connected, people are asked to wave or call out to the eels, but not too loudly, for 5 minutes at a time during 2 time slots a day. So basically,
only in Japan.
This just sounds like, if I were one of the eels, this is like torture. I'd be like, shut up.
Like, I'm
Literally,
finally going back to my roots.
For 5 minutes.
people call in so that they can, I don't know if they just have like screens set up or what, but then just everyone gets to be just like, hi eels, hello eels, for 5 minutes.
I
Wow.
couldn't even take the 10 seconds that you were doing right there. I would have been the eel, but like, the eels are mysteriously killing themselves now. They wrap around the other's throat and just.
I like how
So
it
you guys
says
don't
that they
want
ask
to do
the
like
people.
a 5-minute practice session right now where we all just say, hi eels.
I like how it says that they just ask people to not speak too loudly.
Yeah, I
When
feel like
you
I
have
should be
a
able.
volume button on every iPad, just turn it down, people.
Also, you asked me to call. I'll talk as loudly as I want.
Yeah.
If you want to save the eels, I'm going to scream.
Eels!
Straight out of the
You're
sand.
frightening the eels. Eels!
I just want a video of this event, not of what the eels are doing, but I just want to see what the eels are supposed to be seeing. So
I think that would be pretty entertaining, just to be like, because like I said, I don't know if it's like one dude that just his job is to answer the calls. They come in and hold the phone up to the tank, or if they have like mounted a bunch of screens all along the tank and for people to call in. Like,
I just see just the line of phones with people's faces in them, and just like in the middle of it is just like half of the Barnes family. Hi, Eel. Hi.
Yeah. You know what? Does it say anything about how to actually call in? Because we should.
not in this particular article. Like, I don't see a phone number.
And does it cost? Because if it costs money, I'm out. But I'll do it for free.
They probably don't want Americans. We're the worst.
Americans are ruining it. They're ruining the world anyway with the most corona.
Because they're afraid that a travel call and be like, eels.
I call eating sushi like eating eel. I'm just like eating it with the hi eels, you look real tasty. They're like, you sick son of a gun.
Trav's like, would you like some unagi?
Look at this unagi.
Oh, let me dip it in some eel sauce, even though it's not really eel.
It's a real monster.
All right. Well,
no, that was why I just thought it was kind of interesting. So I wanted to see what was like the most awkward transition that I could take to get to this story, and I feel
You
like
did
I
it.
accomplished
Mission
that.
accomplished.
You did it. Good
I
job.
confused you guys
Did I
with the
answer your
whole
question?
FaceTime. question.
answer your question, though, I do not use FaceTime as much as possible because I can't even stand talking on the phone. If I can get away with texting anything and everything, I will. I'll only talk on the phone if I actually have to, and FaceTime is like a once every year thing. If it's a big meeting thing like this, I'll do it. I'll do like Zoom or
Alan, you and I sort of FaceTimed last night. So
last night.
for like 30 seconds when
What?
Danny left. When Danny left to go yell at his children. When
Oh,
you were
yeah.
there.
Oh,
you
yeah.
came over.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, let's move on to Mars because I want to know what's going on with Mars. So,
Yeah, what's happening with that planet?
but before
Well,
we get to that, I got
going around the sun right now.
made myself.
It's called an orbit.
Oh, I like Travis Mars tin hat. It would really. It looks extra special with it flickering in and out of existence.
I know.
It does. Travel, like it looks like it fits really well. Is it custom made?
It is custom made. I made it
Oh wow!
10
So you gotta
minutes
pay
before
extra
we
for that,
started.
huh?
So
I
Well,
also
it's
brought
Menardi.
a
Good news
space.
is you won't have your mind read by aliens during our podcast.
don't want that done. So
Take
it away, Alan
Wait.
Sean.
I brought a space-related thing too.
Did you?
It's my Mystery Science Theater 3000 mug.
Ooh.
Okay, Trav, I'm
Right.
just gonna lead with
It
that.
has
They've
immense
never
in
seen it, so they don't know.
Oh, you guys got to see it. It's so good. I somehow don't think you'd enjoy it though.
I've seen
You
parts
will.
of Mystery Science 3000. That's the one where they're watching the movie and like commenting on it, right?
Yeah, but
Mhm.
there's a bazillion of them. So
Some are better than others. It's you got to know the good ones. But
Yeah,
Or
like they
there's
watch
just
like
the
old
movie.
movies.
the movie,
There's-
the official movie is the best one in my.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you guys know that I also brought something space related. You guys like to see it? It's a star.
a rock star.
Ignore this part. Star.
It also says 0 on it, as in zero gravity.
Oh. There are so many implications because
Rock.
there are. It also
Asteroids
says B
have rock.
on here, if you guys can see. So that would stand for like Alpha Centauri B.
He's stretching now. There's a letter B. Alpha Centauri B.
240.
It's got
It stands for
20%
miles
yellow
above
5.
the Earth's surface. Yeah.
Yellow 5
Pure.
shrinks the penis like
Nothing
it
is
does
more
with
pure than
Makes
the
How
my-
long are we going to
space.
continue with this? Seriously. Like, you understand the rules of comedy? You can take something so far before people are shut the hell up.
That's why Trav and I
times
just went off
or
on.
So
I
anyways,
feel like that was just the perfect amount right there. But I'm
I
done.
also brought something space related.
Ah.
your topic. Oh, your arm.
His star tats. His stats.
What? His is perfect.
Are you hoping to get a full constellation done on your body, Alan, by the time you're done? So you like when you're in the buff, you look like that guy that's bowling the arrow.
Orion.
Orion, that's the one.
Orion's
Orion
belt.
the Hunter.
The
My
galaxy
space knowledge.
is on Orion.
You know what would be cool though is if Alan did that, but he did it with glow in the dark ink,
Oh,
and then he turned the lights out, and then undressed, and then stood in the Orion pose.
Gets a little weird towards the end there, but yeah.
Did you say that would be cool?
Well,
I
I
don't
think for Alan.
That would be cool if Alan bathed in neon fluorescence.
When those little
then-
kids had those stars on their ceiling, like if Alan had those on his body and he was naked in a room in the dark, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, real cool. Seeing your brother naked.
First, he oils himself up so that the light glimmers off his skin.
I did not mean
He's like,
that.
it
I
would
wanted
be
to see
so
it. I'm
cool
saying
if I could see his
somebody
Ursa
might wanna
Major.
Well,
Okay.
it starts off as Ursa Minor, then it becomes Ursa Major.
Got it.
All right, so welcome to my conspiracy topic. Okay.
So many space jokes.
First, I'll just explain what the conspiracy is. The conspiracy is that NASA in the 70s discovered life on Mars, but they've covered it up and they've denied discovering life on Mars. And the reason that they're denying it is because their long-term goals are to eventually send humans to Mars and then colonize Mars. But if there's life there already, then people will be very opposed to us colonizing it and potentially destroying any life that's already there.
So
Or
just to like,
if there is life there, contaminating ourselves with it, and if it's harmful to us, if it's a pathogen, then us bringing it back to Earth and then killing off the whole human species.
See, that seems like a bigger deal, but go ahead.
So on the flip side, so it's not so much that they're worried about like actual intelligent
Genocide.
beings. They're just more worried about us, like even if it's just microbial. What is it?
There's
It's not that
too
hard
many
of a
R's,
word. It's
Danny.
microbial.
Microbial. That it's still something that's like important that we need to like be able to study it before we kill it off.
Well, yes, that's the stance I would take.
Wait.
Is at least let us study it and learn all about it, and then maybe we can kill it off. But no, yeah, it's just we don't want to kill it or harm it, and so people will be against colonizing Mars to not destroy the life that's already there. Because
Wait, I have a question.
At the time, it would be our only actual other life that we know of in the universe. Yeah, what?
My question is, and thank you for addressing it so aggressively. So definitely doesn't make me nervous to ask the question. So what? Yeah, what?
Out with it, boy.
What kind of, so do we know what, like, is there a set, like, what kind of life did they find? Are they covering up on, like Danny said, like, is it like microism life? Or is it like full life? Do they know? Like, is it somewhere written that someone's like, oh, it's just small life, but they still don't want to go? Or is it like Danny, alien life behind him that's like that really full life?
Yeah, or is it like Asians? As Travis.
For the most part, we're just talking microbial life.
Microbial life.
Like microscopic, single-celled organism type things, bacteria or archaeal or whatever you call them. But there are people also that, who are part of, like, they believe in this conspiracy theory. Obviously, you're going to have people to the extreme where they're like, oh, yeah, there's definitely like Martians. There's that face on Mars. That's proof that they've built structures resembling human beings. People think there are canals that have been seen on the surface of Mars that were built by Martians.
Trav, I thought you were going to ask the question, do the aliens have two sexes like we do?
I was saving that for you because you had the Mars Attacks up. Do the aliens have two sexes like we do?
Like we do.
That's such a good movie.
Yeah, obviously, there are some people who think, more advanced life.
Because I don't want to be a tool, but I don't feel like I would be that concerned about microbiotic life. Like, I obviously get, like, when we come to, like, America in 1400s and, like, outright destroy Native American life and culture, that, like, I can see how you wouldn't want to repeat that again in history. But, like, microbiotic life, I'm sort of like, I don't know. Like, would there be that many people who would care about that, who'd be, like, protesting, be like, we can't go there? Now, I get it if it's, like, you're worried about bringing it back here and destroying all of us. But from like a taking over POV, I just don't really buy like that there'd be that many people upset about it. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
I don't know.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, But my guess would be that they're the people that would be super concerned about the microbial life. I don't know.
Just take a
Anyway,
microbiotic or something.
are concerned because, like, I mean, what if this, whatever they find, the life there could be useful in some way? I mean, what if we realize, oh, like, this is like a cure for cancer, like whatever.
That's true.
There's different uses that it potentially could have. That
or it could be a symbiote.
We would like to, experiment with it, test it first, and then decide whether or not we need it. I didn't even know what you said because I was talking over you, so I couldn't hear it on my phone.
He was talking about Spider-Man. So
I said it could be a symbiote. That's Venom.
Oh, okay.
He latches
So
Spider-Man.
Also, another reason to study, if we did find microbial life on Mars, another reason to study it would be to see if it's a whole separate genesis of life from what's on Earth, or if it's super similar to us. So it could answer kind of questions about how life on Earth got started, how we got started. If it's similar to us, then that opens up the possibilities that life could have originated on Mars billions of years ago, and then like a comet or asteroid hit Mars, and then you have the whole panspermia theory where rocks with microbial life flew off Mars and landed on Earth and then seeded Earth with life. Or it could go the vice versa. Rocks from Earth got ejected and landed on Mars and then seeded that life on Mars.
Yeah. Well, I think the article that you sent me the other day had an interesting way of describing it. I think the author of that article put it something like Earth and Mars have been swapping spit for billions of years, you know, basically meaning they've been sharing particles back and forth ever since they were formed.
Now, are you trying to tell me there's some kind of space Jesus out there making life on Mars? Is that what you're saying to me?
Now,
like if they did, I feel like if they did find this out, it would sure upset a lot of people, because if you really did find that, like, okay, well, we can actually determine how life was created here on Earth by following how life is developing on Mars, it does kind of put a little bit of a hiccup in a lot of religions and the way they believe things to be. And it doesn't completely write it off, because you can find workarounds, and, you know, I personally believe there's overlaps between religion and science, but you know, it could be a very like large fundamental change to the way our society functions as a culture if all of a sudden you find that you're like, oh, actually the way we developed is proven because here it is up on Mars.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is for like a different episode, so I don't, because we could go into this for like ever. But exactly like your point on, you think that religion and science have overlap. I mean, there is overlap, but I think it would just be interesting to see from the standpoint of if we just travel back in time 500 years or 1,000 years and we talk to somebody then, their overlap would basically seem like, instead of science, just replace that word with magic. And there'd just be a lot of like religion and magic have their overlap. But what they didn't realize is their magic was actually explained by science, right? No.
Talking about Thor.
Are you being contradictory or playing devil's advocate, Danny?
No, I was agreeing with Trav.
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell.
But saying, because like there's some people who are super, super science based, obviously, and then there's people that are like super religious, but the truth probably is like somewhere in the middle. If that sense.
Got it. So I think what Trav,
but right now we call it science. That's what we are like. We know about science now.
Yeah.
Whereas 1,000 years ago they called it magic, or Trav. What did they call it?
What do you mean?
Starts with an A.
Abracadabra.
Alchemy.
Yeah.
I was like,
We
you said
alchemy.
it
We did an
already.
episode
They called
on
it
alchemy
magic.
before.
I was really hoping that was
M
the
was
other
trying to
trap.
say. I think what Trav M was getting at is like the whole Christian view of like Adam and Eve were put on, they were created by God, versus if we discover like the actual, like a scientific origin of life, it's most likely going to be evolution, right?
Yeah,
It's not going
I
to
mean,
be,
definitely.
it'll definitely disprove like the whole Adam and Eve.
I mean, that's the kind of interesting
Right, the
thing about
same-
it is it's already, I mean, we've already proved evolution, but because
Yeah.
we can't actually go back in time and distinctly be like, hey, see, here it is, people
This-
are like,
yeah.
they can rewrite it. But if all of a sudden you said, oh, actually take a look here on this other planet where you can see that happening firsthand, then it really does. You could still be like, it wasn't the case here. God made us here, and then he did evolution over there on Mars. But like, it gets harder and harder to justify the more and more you begin to discover that kind of stuff. And again, not to say that religion or Christianity doesn't have its place, because I'm definitely not saying that, but it just, the view of such a literal, like, reach down and finger of God touching a man and him appearing out of basically thin air essentially is not as viable. The
Yeah.
more
So
we see
remind
this
me
kind of
this,
stuff.
because I don't remember this from my younger days of studying the scriptures, whatever. But Adam was created from the earth. Is that correct?
It doesn't it doesn't
Like-
give a source. It's not like he was rolled out of dough or something.
Yeah.
It like doesn't
Everything
really say,
is to be interpreted different ways. It's
I mean,
God's speak.
if you read
Okay.
if you read it literally, it's just that he just makes him. It's like we are going to go down and we're going to make God goes down and he makes earth, he makes light, he makes water, he makes,
Well,
it doesn't really be like,
I knew. He made all,
I do
all that in his 6 days before he rested, right, on the seventh day. So
yeah.
But I mean, before we go on too much of a tangent, because like I said, this is an episode on Mars, not religion. But it's just one of those things I could never remember, and maybe that's why, is because there isn't an actual thing. But for some reason, I always wanted to attach some kind of physical, like, property, as in like Captain Planet kind of a situation. But like Adam was created from Earth, and Eve was created from like leaves or something like that, you know.
His
It was a
rib.
rib.
His rib bone or
It
something.
was his rib, yeah.
So
I do like the idea of God as Captain Planet. I think that's something we could all lean into.
You saying God was Captain Planet or Adam was Captain Planet?
No, I'm just saying, like,
I think
guess
God was Captain
the
Planet.
story to
God
me
and
would
Jesus
be-
just with these rings.
the story to me just like makes not necessarily more sense, but would be more exciting if it was like the whole, like, elements, like earth, wind, fire, water, and heart, right? And each one was created from one of those sources, and then they made man. But that's neither here nor there.
That's not
Let's
even
go
any
to,
religion at all. That's just like a fictional. That is. Never mind. Okay.
We'll do a Captain Planet episode down the line where Danny can get all his religious analogies out of Captain Planet.
He's like, I believe Captain Planet is in the Bible.
Look. When God said that the meek would inherit the earth, I think he was referring to heart. He's a pretty meek guy.
He's like, it's that little Indian boy.
yeah, I should start my own Captain Planet religion. I think it would catch on.
Yeah,
Just saying.
undoubtedly.
I'm going to say two things real quick about the religion thing before we move on. So I feel like you can just have a God that creates the universe and the Big Bang, sets things in motion, and he realizes it's going to eventually end up with the evolution of us. And like, he doesn't have to like come down and abracadabra, there you are, humans. He can just set things in motion, knowing we're going to evolve.
That's my theory. But go on.
Yeah. Second, I've always wondered if we do find life on like other planets, intelligent life, are they going to have like scriptures that like Jesus also visited them? Because the Mormon
Ooh,
religion
the Book
has
of
the Book of
Mars.
Mormon where Jesus came to the Americas.
The Book of Marsman.
So basically, what I'm
Do
saying,
they have gold on Mars?
what I'm saying is, did Jesus just go on tour or something?
He did. It's actually a well-known fact. Jesus is back in the USSR tour as he goes around the country and just sees a bunch of different people. No, I mean, I don't know.
A Beatles tour?
Yeah, no, it's just a
USSR
Beatles
tour?
song. I just picked the thing at
Oh.
random. But I mean, I think it's a very I don't know if they. I mean, it really like opens up a whole Pandora's box if you actually open to religion. Like, would they have a religion? Do they look like us? Because if they don't look like us, then all of a sudden, I mean, could you imagine like the guy behind behind Danny, and like all of a sudden, like white or Middle Eastern, depending on your point of view, Jesus like descends among them, and he's like, "Hey, everybody," they'd be like, "Ah! You are created after my own image," kind of. Like
My own image after I've been in the tub for way too long.
Danny, do you want to say the word humanoid?
Oh,
Danny loves humanoids.
This is a humanoid-looking alien. For those of you watching on YouTube,
All right, we get into the.
But yeah, we can get into it for sure. But I guess one last point on this is just: does it say anywhere that God is God of the earth only? Because isn't it just like implied that God is God of the universe? Therefore, it doesn't matter where life sprouts in the universe; He's still the God of that life. If you were to go that route.
The general belief is that I've heard from within my upbringing, which was Latter-day Saint Mormon, is that He is the God of many worlds. However, only one world had the sacrifice of Jesus. So that sacrifice accounts for other worlds. Now, take that all with, the grain of appropriate salt of old prophets rambling in the 1800s. And, but that has been the belief that I understand it to be growing up, was that there are many worlds, but only one world actually had a Jesus. Each world does not need its own Jesus sacrifice.
Oh. I could see this totally turning into a Rick and Morty episode.
It probably already has been a Rick and Morty episode.
Where it's just like every world thinks that they have the only Jesus, and there's just like this room just chock full of Jesuses.
That is pretty, actually. That does sound like a Rick and Morty episode.
All right, sorry.
All right,
we'll stop talking about
with
religion.
this conspiracy, why? I mean, we've kind of sat here and we've talked about some of the reasons why it is such a big deal. I mean, what's really going on with it? Are people actively involved in the conspiracy these days, or what?
Involved? What do you mean?
Just,
Like,
I
is
mean,
it an ongoing thing, or was it something that was really popular only back in the 80s or
in the
was it
70s,
70s or
80s?
80s? When
No, it's
the
definitely it's an ongoing thing for sure. So here, let me pull up a picture for you guys. So there's also, this is just a picture I found of, so there's this guy who's like a believer in all these conspiracies online, and he claims to have found in the NASA pictures that he says NASA found this thing. Here, let me pull it up. He says it's a femur bone of some type of Martian animal, and NASA found it, and what they decided to do was to not tell anybody and then purposely run it over with the rover and try and break it or something. So let me share that. So I don't know if you guys can see it there. That's supposedly a femur bone, is what he says, on Mars.
I mean, I could see it. It looks like a bone.
Yeah, I could see how it resembles a femur, but I think we could find thousands of rocks on Earth that would resemble a femur as well.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I don't know how paleontologists do it, because all fossils look just like rocks to me.
Yeah.
So
I wonder, like, why NASA would run over it though. Like, I just don't. I have a hard time imagining that they would be like. If anything, they'd be like, just drive away from that. Like, don't show it again. As opposed to being like a guy who hit like a deer on the road. And he's like, I better back up and make sure it's dead. Like, it just seems like a very excessive overkill to me, and especially
so,
something that blends in so much as a rock, essentially.
yeah. Can you see my cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So apparently, like this is supposed to be like where it ran over it, like the track from the rover.
Yeah, but where's the rest of the track?
I don't know. That's what I was looking for, and so
Because it looks pretty pristine all around it.
I think that's a conspiracy of its own.
Yeah.
Where's the tires? The tire tracks.
But honestly, based on the article I read and the source, like you could tell it wasn't written really by a
scholarly gentleman.
Yeah, scholarly gentleman. So I'm suspicious if this is even an actual image taken by the Mars rover. If this is even
Was it Cheech and Chong?
What?
Like, there was like a rover on Mars and a femur, dude. And he ran over it.
You know what? Rover's another word for dog, and dogs love bones. That was me bringing Danny's joke back around.
Well done.
Call the callback.
If you could bring up that picture really quickly again, Alan. Sorry, I thought there was something that was even more interesting in that picture than the quote-unquote femur portion. But if you guys look over, I mean, to me, because I'm looking at the screen, it's on the far right. There's a larger looking rock. Can you kind of point that out with your cursor, Alan? Yes. So if you look at that rock, to me, it looks like a extended hand in fist bump mode. And also looks to me like it's got a pretty large ring, which could be one of the rings that are involved with Captain Planets.
What the hell
What are you talking about? It doesn't even look like a hand in
Is this
fist
the
bump
ring?
mode.
No, the ring is like a little bit higher. Yes, there.
That's the ring.
The ring. Sitting on top of the fist bump.
That is not a fist bump.
See, I thought it looked like a troll head.
I kind of thought it looked like one of those like dead fox skulls, but it had a helmet on. A helmet made of another fox skull.
I think I proved my point with this whole thing, meaning people will see what they want to see in anything. This to me is very little, is not proof of anything. I think, which is the point Alan was getting at. But yeah.
Well, and then I guess I'll challenge you Barnes boys, because I'm sure you guys, I'm sorry, you Barnes men, because I think you'll know more of this about science than I do. But like, doesn't the, like, for like something to, because isn't it oxygen that kind of like destroys and breaks down the body after you're dead?
Yeah.
Right? So with no oxygen in
Oxidation.
space, oxidation, yeah. So with no oxygen in space, could something break down, or would that animal or creature, when it dies, just be full part?
Well, it would be like a completely different scenario. I think in the fact that Mars has such a different atmosphere than there is on Earth. So for that process to happen, it would happen very differently. I mean, I would still imagine that at some point. But I mean, here it goes, like, because it goes back to Earth. A large part of it is like you said, like the oxygenation or whatever you guys call it.
That was it, oxygenation. Scientific term.
Oxidation.
Oxidation, can cause the bloating, and for people where they kind of like expand and all that stuff. But ultimately, it's bugs, or even microbials that are ultimately in charge of.
Daddy, there's no second R, just so you know.
Think Jessica Biel, microbial.
Microbials.
Okay,
I don't know, guys. I think we should let him say it. Microbial.
Microbial.
That are there to further break down the body. So I don't know, like, this is just a complete guess, but I would almost think like it would be like the perfect condition for mummification or something like that.
Maybe. But see, mummification still suggests like a sense of like there's still something there. It's not really down to the bones. But I also wonder, like, if something is breaking this thing down, even then, why not this bone in particular? Is it like the last of the bones of this creature? It just seems like there should be. It's not like there should be more. There should be more to this.
All those
body.
other rocks are part of that one being that is now scattered
thing
in
with
that
the
area.
Troll
But,
head,
I mean,
fist bump head.
It makes sense. Okay, let's say this is a femur bone or some type of bone. Then it would make sense that there's microbial life that would have breaking down all the tissue at least, right?
Yeah,
So
and I
therefore,
would
proving
mean-
life on Mars. Huh?
That everything we know about Mars and its atmosphere is incorrect, which means our scientists are stupid and they don't know.
it's like
because
an
all their-
old.
And then also, depending on how old you want to say this is, like the conditions on Mars right now definitely are different than what it was 3 billion years ago. 3 billion years ago, scientists actually think that it was very Earth-like. There were oceans of water, running rivers, lakes, a lot thicker atmosphere, probably similar to what we have now here on Earth. It's just that Mars lost all of that because it's smaller than Earth, so its core solidified and cooled a lot faster than the Earth, which then its magnetic field went away when it didn't have a spinning iron core or molten core. And then the solar radiation, all the UV light and protons that are whizzing by blew away its atmosphere over a period of like millions of years. And so
That's not
1%,
how it happened.
it has
Al.
1% the atmospheric density that we do right now. And most of it
What-
is carbon dioxide, I think.
What happened was one scientist a while back was like, you know what? I think that Mars was like a Earth back millions of years ago. And then everybody was like, yeah, I could dig that.
Is this like the like scientists are like Joe Exotic? They're like Tiger King. They're like, I think Carol Baskin, maybe she took away the Earth's atmosphere
Mars's atmosphere.
or Mars's atmosphere.
Fed it to a tiger.
Carol Baskin ruined Mars. That's what I think. Married her husband up there.
That's where he is.
All right. So now I'm going to get into like the experiment that was done on the Viking probes in the 1970s, in 1976, that this, on the other hand, so this isn't about the conspiracy anymore, or like people who are like that picture in the website, that article I was reading, like you can tell they're not scholarly. This is an actual, the principal investigator who led the experiment to detect microbial life on the Viking landers. He's the one who is saying that he's convinced their experiment did discover microbial life and detected it, but NASA is being way too conservative, and all of NASA's reasons for saying that it's inconclusive or they really didn't, it was not actually life, it was inorganic chemical reactions that they detected and not microbial life. He's saying that that's all wrong and that all the reasons they state for it not really being life are easily disproven. And I'll go through all those. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So on July 30th in 1976, the Viking landers, I think there were two of them, they were both landed 4,000 kilometers apart on the surface of Mars. And they each had an experiment on board called the labeled release life detection experiment. And what is his name? Gilbert Levin is the guy I'm talking about, who is convinced that they did discover life. He's an American engineer and was in charge of that experiment. So how that experiment worked, I'm going to explain it to you guys real quick. Let me bring up.
I'm going to explain it real quick in picture form. 1,000 words. Pictures are worth 1,000 words.
Wait, why is it?
That looks like the same experiment we just saw.
Why is it not coming up?
It's getting smaller though.
Okay, can you guys see it? It's kind of small though.
No.
You might have to expand
I can
it.
see it.
You can't tell it all.
It looks
You're on
like
your computer. I can see it nice and clear.
So basically, what you have, can you guys still see it?
yeah.
You can't see my notes, right?
Nope.
No.
Okay. I don't know how this sharing works. All right. So on board the experiment, you have a Viking composite instrument, including a carbon-14 detector. Okay. So this is the detector that what they're looking for are carbon-14 isotopes, which basically, I'll try and explain what that is. The regular carbon you think about is carbon-12, which means it has 6 protons and 6 neutrons. And an isotope is an element that has the same amount of protons, so 6 protons, but just different amounts of neutrons. So the reason they're looking for carbon-14 is because carbon-14 is radioactive, which means it decays. So what this carbon-14 is, I'll get back to that. So just remember, carbon-14 radioactive. Also on board the experiment is a solution of nutrients for microbial life. It's an aqueous solution with a bunch of like alanine, dealanine, lactate, glycolate, and all this stuff, okay? And then also a heat source so that they can add a little bit of heat for microbials to like go through their metabolic process if they need to. So basically they take a sample of the soil, and can you see like this little middle cavity container part?
Yes.
Like a little mound at the bottom. So that's like the sample of soil that they take. They put 5 cc's of Martian soil in it, and then they add 0.155 milliliters of the nutrients solution to that soil. So up top, can you see these little drips going down onto the soil?
Mm-hmm.
That's the nutrient solution. But this is the critical part. In that solution of nutrients, they have replaced regular carbon-12 atoms in the nutrients with carbon-14 atoms.
Oh shit!
Those freaking sneaky buggers.
Just when you think you know what a carbon-12 is, they tell you it's a carbon-14.
Oh, it's radioactive, okay?
Radioactive!
Then
I'm going to basically do that every time you say
Yeah, maybe it's in your best interest to pick a new word.
basically they dump nutrients, which is laced with radioactive carbon-14 onto the what?
Sorry.
You said radioactive.
Just
I
barrel
wanted to say
through.
radioactive.
Onto the soil sample. And then they incubate the sample at 10 degrees Celsius and monitor it for 8 days to watch the evolution or the creation of the gas waste products that microorganisms that are consuming the nutrients, when they consume the nutrients, they would then metabolize it and respirate out gas. And since they laced the nutrients with the carbon-14, the detector. So can you see you can still see here. So there's this tube leading off to the left and then down and then into the square where the detector is. So the gas released by any microorganisms would obviously rise and then enter that tube and then go down into the detector. So then if they detect carbon-14 there, that means that something ate, metabolized, and then released the gaseous waste that includes this radioactive carbon-14.
Are
So
you telling me, Alan, this entire thing is built around alien farts? That's
I was gonna say I
basically.
eat, metabolize, and release gas all the time.
you guys took my joke too. Now it's not as funny.
Well, you could have just not said anything, and nobody would have been the wiser. But you brought it to everyone's attention that you had that joke too.
No, I mean, so in essence, though, in a nutshell, what Alan's saying is they put a handful of dirt, in essence, inside of a container. They sprinkled it with some of the carbon-14, and they waited to see what would happen. And then they had detectors on board that would try to either tell you, yes, there is organic life, or there is not organic life on Mars. And the results were
Inconclusive.
Well, no, the results. Hang on. Where is it in my notes?
yes or no.
The initial results were amazingly, they were positive. A total of 4 positive results, supported by 5 varied controls, came back. All of them were positive, and this was on both Viking landers that were 4,000 miles apart. The data curves that they received, so that right here, this shows you what the data they collected. I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where they injected the nutrients, and then this shows the detection of the amount of carbon-14 that they detected. Over here this is the sols, so that's 2 sols, like Martian days, 2, 4, 6, 8, whatever. So over this period of time, obviously they detected the carbon-14, which would mean something is metabolizing and expelling the gaseous waste, right? And then they also had a control experiment. So what they did to try and rule out if it being just some inorganic, some non-life process, just a chemical process that was somehow creating the gaseous waste with the carbon-14, to rule that out, after they ran this first cycle, which created this curve on the graph, then they all of a sudden heated the soil sample to 160 degrees Celsius for 3 hours, I think, which would kill off any bacteria or microorganisms, and then it should stop all of the carbon-14 detection or production of the gaseous waste. And when they did that, you can see right here at the bottom, this is after they heated it. They call it cycle 2, and all of a sudden no gaseous waste, right? So that means the heat killed off the microorganisms that had created this curve previously.
Well, all I'm saying is I have got tons of material for any time somebody wants to fight about whether or not there is actual life on Mars. Because I will just tell them I can prove it. They sent a Viking probe to test the alien farts using carbon-14 dirt, and therefore we have life on Mars.
Pretty sure there was a lot of things incorrect with what you said beyond even alien parts. It's interesting, but so Alan, like it seems pretty solid. So why is it not then considered to be?
Okay, so I'll get into that. Basically, so for life, at least life that we know of on Earth, and that's the only example we have, obviously, to go off of, is you need organic compounds and organic molecules to create life. So the theory is that, you know, in the primordial before life on Earth, there was this primordial like soup of organic molecules and compounds, in which organic molecules are just basically any molecule that contains carbon. And carbon is like, can create life, I guess, is like so important to life because carbon has a unique ability to create long chains or polymers that are like essential for life, like amino acids and all that stuff.
Because we're considered carbon-based life forms, and really all life on Earth is considered carbon-based life.
Yeah.
Are we carbon 12 or are we carbon 14? Because I know a lot of people who are super toxic.
Was that a joke? I honestly thought it was serious all the way till like Alan did his little Santa laugh.
Yeah,
I was like, I didn't know that I was supposed to laugh. I was like, oh, Danny's talking about something I don't understand. And then now I was like,
I have the answer. Do you want the answer though?
Yes, I do.
We're primarily carbon 12, but we do have carbon 14 in us. Like we breathe it in all the time. It's not a lot, but carbon 14 is actually on Earth. It's naturally made by cosmic rays slamming into the top of our atmosphere and creating, what are they called? Ions that then combine with other things, and then eventually somehow it creates carbon 14. And then it's in our atmosphere, but it's like trace amounts, but we do breathe it in and it's part of us. So once you die, that's what carbon basing is based off, all the carbon dating of like archaeological finds and stuff like that. The carbon 14 is what they can actually calculate its age with, is because carbon 14 has a half-life of like 5,700 years or something like that. So basically, if you have 100 grams of carbon 14, after 5,700 years, half of that is decayed. So you only have 50 grams left of carbon 14. And then the other half has turned into, I think, nitrogen. And then after another 5,700 years, 25%. And then 75% is nitrogen. So you can actually like, that's how carbon dating works. Does that answer the question? So anyway, so the whole point of the bringing up organic matter is that you have to have organic matter, we think, to create life. What happened to Trav? Where'd he go?
I'm here.
No. And then the Viking landers failed to find or detect any organic matter. So NASA says that's one reason to doubt that we actually detected life on Mars. And over the last 43 years since, though, NASA has been kind of weird about it, which is probably what adds to the conspiracy theories. They have like refused to send another rover and add another life detection experiment on it. Even though this guy who ran this one, what was his name? Gilbert Levine, has been begging them. People have been like, why aren't you just sending more experiments, like better updated, because now we can do them even better and more efficient, and they're more sensitive. But Mars has just like taken the stance that we're moving more onto just studying the ancient conditions on Earth, like was there water, liquid water, and how habitable could Mars have been in the past? And then also looking for water. They're like taking the stance of follow the water, and then if we find water, then we can think about looking for life. But it's like, why? It's so easy to just send an experiment to actually detect life firsthand, instead of going for the water or trying to find out if it could have been habitable in the past.
So why would it actually matter? I mean, for science, yes, it would matter. But for as we kind of circle back to the conspiracy, reiterate a little bit, why was it so important for them, if they did cover it up? Why cover up this whole, like, millions of years of possible existence, just so that we could one day inhabit that planet?
That's what the conspiracy theory is. Yeah, that's what
I don't think so.
conspiracy theorists are saying, that they don't want to tell us about the life because they want to colonize Mars. And if we know there's life there, then we'll say, no, you can't colonize Mars.
But
I don't
see,
think so.
I would come the other direction and be like, hey, something is actually living there. That means that it's a possibility that other things could live there too, meaning us. I don't want to go to something that is completely just inhabitable.
I think that it's actually because of and this is taking it all the way back around to the religious thing to some degree, but I think it's like the level of like change that would just transform our cultures if we found out there was life off of this planet is like so dramatic that I have a feeling like leadership and people have like silenced it, because they're like, look, we can't, like, it's just going to throw everything into turmoil. Like, we have to keep people believing things that they've always believed and hold them to that kind of like set that they've always believed in, and not upset the apple cart, so to speak, especially over something like this.
Yeah, and I would agree with that more in the front of if they were actually finding intelligent alien life or something like that, where, you know, they're like, whoa, some creature just literally came up and was like sniffing the probe or whatever. But instead, if it's just microbial,
That's good. Just pick a different word.
Then
say microorganisms
are, yeah, like, if it's just that, though, I don't know that would create such a scare. Like, Trev, tomorrow, if they were to confirm and just be like, yeah, okay, legit, we found germs on Mars, would that change your train of thought too much?
I don't think it would change mine, but I think you're talking about extremely, you know, I mean, you have to look at the religions beyond just beyond our own. There's religions within the country that are very strict and very God-fearing, so to speak, and very much, but then you go overseas and you get Islamic religions and different kinds of religions that have much even higher level. Like, I'm not saying it's all on religion or that it's all that necessarily, but I think that there's enough there that it would cause people to question that it's sort of like NASA's kind of like, until we really know, until we have a 100% sure proof, do we really want to kind of upset this apple cart to some degree?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm just speculating, because I don't, and this is not a knock to you, Alan, but I don't really buy the reasoning being that, like, people would be like, boo, we don't want to colonate. Because, like, I'm kind of with Trav. I'm like, I feel like that would be encouragement to colonate. Because you'd be like, oh, like, there have been things that have lived there. But I don't know. I mean, it's just an interesting, I don't blame NASA for, if it is the case, I don't blame them for kind of being a little bit shy about it, because I think it is a big piece of news that would really kind of rock some boats to some degree for a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's either that or they're just using it for you know, it's kind of like one of those things that you hold just in your back pocket until the right moment, you know, like when you finally got that one thing that you are right about in a discussion with your spouse, and you're like, I'm just going to hold on to this until the right moment. And for us, it's going to be some, you know, argument between us and China or us and Russia. And finally, we're just going to pull it out and be like, ha ha! there is life on Mars.
Considering
Prove
that
it.
people like don't even believe
NASA
we've landed on the moon, I don't know that people are gonna buy into that either. So
We landed on the moon.
What you're saying, Travis, NASA is like the husband, and the rest of humanity is like the wife, and they're just waiting for that moment.
Yes. Because nobody ever believes us.
Because their budget has been constantly slashed since like the 70s.
that's what I
They're just
think.
like they've been abused. People don't appreciate them anymore. They had to do away
Exactly.
with their space shuttle program because they didn't have funding.
People
They have to
around the
rely
world don't know
on-
how hard it is to be an American.
So now they have this in their back pocket that they can just finally be like, you know what? There is life on Mars. We knew about it. You treated us like crap. and we
Since the
didn't know you."
70s, we drove our rover over a femur. That was a legit femur. And then we had another little robot come and sweep away the tire tracks.
And then a third robot to sweep those tire tracks.
But that third robot was more of like a drone.
It exploded
And
a
he
little
just
bit.
came down and he just went,
You think the Roomba wasn't originally a NASA invention made for Mars to sweep away tracks? Huh?
hell yeah.
We called it
That
a Moomba.
space-aged
The
stuff.
Moomba.
It was a Moomba back then. Originally used on the moon.
So,
Okay, so real
cool.
quick, I'm gonna get into like all of the. So I just have a list of the problems that NASA has with the detection of life from that experiment. So just so you remember, one, during the experiment, there appeared a uniform production of gas when the nutrients was placed on the soil. Two, the reactant in the Mars soil is completely inhibited when they heated it. So that bottom line, right? So all this would suggest, indeed, there was life on Mars. But here are the discrepancies or problems that NASA has in the past put forward as the reason they doubt it. One, no organic compounds, like I said, were found in the Martian soil analyzed by the Viking gas, their instrument that analyzes that. Hydrogen peroxide, chemically formed in the upper atmosphere, was thought to have descended down onto the soil. So basically, there's hydrogen peroxide in the soil, they think.
I use hydrogen peroxide to clean my ears.
I thought you were going to say to
For
clean your
real?
pets.
Yeah, have you never done it? Dude,
Mm-mm.
It's
just
a
lay on
rush,
your
man.
side, pour a little cap of that in your ear, and just let it sit for about 5 minutes. If you can stand it, it cleans it out good.
Does it bubble?
Very shady.
Oh, yeah, it bubbles like crazy.
I just want to know what happens to your ears to get to the point where they require hydrogen peroxide to clean them.
I have deep canals, Daniel.
Okay, so there was hydrogen peroxide, they think, in the soil, and this isn't proven, but they suspect hydrogen peroxide in the soil, which reacted with formic acid, which was in the nutrient solution, and that produces water and carbon dioxide, which would be detected as the radioactive carbon dioxide.
Radioactive.
I was waiting for that.
I know.
Number three is it was assumed that there was no liquid water on Mars and that its absence would make life impossible. 4, the amplitude and kinetics of the labeled release response, so the curve that you saw, the amplitude and kinetics of it, was thought to be, and I don't understand this, all it says is it was thought to be too much too soon.
We're not ready for that yet.
Whoa, that's like really definitive evidence. That's a little much too soon. It's like, huh?
Well, I mean,
Word.
just think about it, right?
What?
If you go and all you have is like a little hors d'oeuvre or something, right? I mean, that's not going to really cause that much of a trouble in your stomach. But if you go to like a full-on like Mexican buffet for a week, I mean, you're going to have some serious irritable bowel syndrome going on by the end of that. And so you wouldn't expect to see such a spike in your fart count until the week is over.
Man, I honestly wasn't sure if you were on the same podcast as us for most of that. I was like, is he like doing another call at the same time and doesn't realize he's on ours?
I
No,
see
that
what you're
makes complete
saying. I
sense.
see what you're saying. You're saying you don't ever pass gas that quickly.
Yeah.
Time, but actually,
I don't
whenever
I
they
don't know about
tested
that,
it-
Oh
guys.
yeah.
So
I can
they
get pretty
actually, I
farted
forgot to
fast.
mention this. They ran this test thousands of times on Earth in different conditions, in laboratory conditions, and in like the harshest outdoor environments known on Earth, and with like Earth life though, Earth microorganisms, and basically the curve they got was almost identical to this one that they got on Mars. And they never, over the thousands of times that they tested it, they never got a false positive or a false negative. Never once. I forgot to mention.
Shut up,
Pretty
Danny.
good test.
Oh yeah, and then also I brought that up because
They should
they
develop.
made this test. They said they can actually
I think
see. They can
think we
actually
lost
see
Trav.
the. Oh, did we? No,
No, he's still there. He was just like delayed for a minute.
Got it.
How was I delayed? I wasn't even talking.
I don't know. I
something's
heard you
happening.
come over the mic.
Like,
But
yeah.
for this experiment,
was like
when they
Travis from
ran
the
it
future.
thousands of times, what happened to him?
He's
But
gone.
when they ran it the thousands of times, they could detect the results of the gaseous carbon-14 15 to 30 minutes after putting the solution on the soil.
So, I mean, here's something that like would be obvious in a way, right? So you said that they did this experiment thousands of times on Earth in different conditions, and it never had a false positive or a false negative. Well, can't they just like superimpose all of those graphs onto the graph that was created on Mars and just be like, look, it's the exact same trajectory on these graphs. So like obviously microbials do fart immediately. Just, so like they can show that like it wasn't too fast. Like they do fart quickly.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, this is just the only graph I just came across this graph and saved it. I'm sure you could find probably I mean, I'm sure you have NASA data that you can go through. Like, I think that's all like open source data. It's owned by the public. You can get pretty much any NASA data you want. But yeah, I don't know if anybody's ever made a superimposed image of all the graphs. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. Well, yeah.
Hang on, I'm not done with all the problems.
What problems are there in this list?
Huh?
Is it how many problems are there? Is this the top 10 list, or is
I
there
have
like
4 more.
47? Oh, okay.
So although not a pre-mission criterion for life, a second injection, so they did inject it a second time with more nutrients, which there was a dip you see like in the curve goes up like this, and then you see like a little bit of a dip and then like that. That's when they injected it for the second time. A second injection of the nutrients onto positive samples failed to reinvigorate the evolution of gas, as which generally occurred with when they tested it on Earth. The curve would go like this, put more on it, and then the curve would go up again. It didn't on Mars, so that's an issue. The next one is There's no visual evidence for life was reported when the Viking camera images were examined, but it's microbial life, and we're talking like literally a camera that back in the 70s, like how many megapixels was that? Not a lot. You can't see microorganisms in like a freaking picture.
Yeah.
That's a dumb one.
Sorry. Are we going to just ignore the fact that there's an earthquake in Seattle for anybody who is watching the video feed?
No, it wasn't an earthquake. It was me putting my feet up on the back of the desk and it caused it to wiggle. So I tried to, I like to respect the speaker, so I kept it cool, but I see how you are. You're just interrupting him rudely.
This explains why our episodes are so damn long. I'm trying to get through this quickly, and Danny just has to like, oh, camera shook a little bit. It's an earthquake.
I mean, in his defense, it did shake quite a bit because I really bumped my desk. But yes, point taken.
Okay,
All
two
right.
more. NASA says UV light, ultraviolet light from the sun, was thought to have activated the soil particles, which then resulted in the which then disrupted the nutrients upon contact, which then released the carbon-14 radioactive gas. And then last is clays on Mars were proposed to react with the nutrients to release the labeled gas, the carbon-14. So those are the issues, and I'll sum it up real quick by going through the list of things that I've read that directly contradict all those issues and blow them out of the water. So one of the issues was they didn't know if there was water on Mars. Well, now they have found surface water sufficient to sustain microorganisms was found on Mars by Pathfinder, Phoenix, and Curiosity. As far as the ultraviolet light disrupting the soil, and then that was what released the gas. They actually did one of the tests shielded like under kind of like a ledge of a rock, so no sunlight was hitting it, so no UV light, and they still got the same results, which was positive for life. Complex organics, I said organic, Viking did not detect organic molecules. That's actually a long story. I don't know if I'll get into that, but they now have detected organic molecules and compounds. And the reason Viking didn't detect them is what they think is that in the soil is something called perchlorate, which is highly flammable. And they like use it for like rocket fuels and like in fireworks and stuff. So they've discovered now that there's a lot of perchlorate in the soil. And when they were testing for organic molecules, the way they did that was they would get some soil and then heat it up to like almost 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which would vaporize some of the soil, and then any organic compounds would be in this vapor, which their detector could detect. But if there's perchlorate that's flammable, it would have ignited that perchlorate, which then would have incinerated any organic molecules they were trying to detect. And they discovered later, scientists later went back and reanalyzed the results, and they found the resulting byproduct, if you did incinerate the or organic compounds, it would make this like chlorobenzene or something. And they actually now in the data have discovered, oh yeah, there's that in the soil. So pretty sure there was organic compounds that they just ended up accidentally incinerating.
So your I just lost my train of thought. So
are you trying to ask him what his opinion is?
Your opinion is that there is life on Mars.
So starting this, when I was starting my research, like I was just kind of like, whatever NASA says, that was my mindset of like, yeah, I trust NASA and stuff like that, which I still do. And I like NASA actually, but I have like, after
NASA's
reading all
pretty
this
cool.
stuff, I really like am leaning more like, if this is neutral and this is no life, I'm kind of like this now toward, yeah, there is microbial life, and we do need to send a follow-up mission with a updated version of these tests and do the tests again.
So I think what we need to remember too is more people listen to this in audio form than in video. So you would say like 55% that yes,
I would say I'm like 65% that there is microbiotic, or what's the word? Microorganisms on Mars. Sorry, there are a few more. I'll just get through them quickly. Phoenix and Curiosity found evidence that the ancient Martian environment may have been habitable. The excess of carbon-13 over carbon-12 in the Martian atmosphere is indicative of biological activity, which prefers carbon-12. So there's like actually the ratio of carbon-13 and carbon-12 is elevated toward the carbon-13 side on Mars in the atmosphere, which the life that we know of actually prefers to ingest and metabolize carbon-12, which makes sense that carbon-12 would be lower if there's life, and carbon-13 would be elevated compared to carbon-12. And that's how it is on Mars. The Martian atmosphere is in disequilibrium. Its CO2 should long ago have been converted to carbon monoxide by the sun's UV light. But there's still CO2, which means somehow it's being regenerated, and it possibly could be by microorganisms regenerating the CO2. Terrestrial microorganisms have survived in outer space outside the International Space Station. So there's evidence that life from Earth, at least, can survive the vacuum of space for, I think this was up to a year and a half. It was just out in the vacuum of space, and it survived. So that means there are organisms on Earth, microorganisms that can survive the environment on Mars, even if it's super harsh. Methane has been measured in the Martian atmosphere. Microbial methanogens could be the source, which is basically just microorganisms that do fart methane.
He said fart.
There's 5 more real quick. Formaldehyde and ammonia, each possibly indicative of biology, are claimed to be in the Martian atmosphere. An independent complexity analysis of the positive results on the Viking labeled release experiment signal identified it as biological. 6-channel spectral analysis by Viking's imaging system found terrestrial lichens. Found terrestrial
Those
lichen.
are like werewolves.
Yep.
No, but in this case, it means like some like plant mossy.
I mean, I get
thing
what
that
you're saying,
grows.
Alan. You're saying there's werewolves on Mars. I get it.
Yes. Ooh. Basically, it took pictures of stuff on Mars that has the exact same color, saturation, hue, and intensity of these lichen plants that grow on rocks on Earth. A worm-like feature was in an image taken by Curiosity. And then the last thing, large structures resembling stromatolites on Earth, which are formed by microorganisms. These are like one of the earliest forms of life on Earth. They're basically like kind of how coral builds up, but dead bodies like build up and create these structures called stromatolites. They found some things that resemble those on Mars, and a statistical analysis of their complex features showed less than a 0.04% probability that the similarity was caused by chance alone. So in summary, all those things that NASA said were the reasons that it wasn't life have been like disproven, and then more discoveries on top of that that do point toward microbial life have been discovered.
Well, NASA has been debunked.
Somebody get him on the phone. Let him know what's happened.
It's like
That's all I'm gonna say about that.
It's like an episode of Mythbusters. Just, it's been busted. It's got to be like in writing on like a piece of metal or wood.
Boom, busted.
Well,
I'd be down for that.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
my question to
it's
you
pretty
guys.
compelling.
Well, my question to you guys was going to be, so after hearing all that, first of all, how much did you understand? Like, did I explain it at all in an understandable way?
Well, we all know my simple mind.
He's right. He's got a simple mind.
I
But
mean,
also-
I understood werewolves, space farts, and
Radioactive.
radioactive.
I followed along pretty well till we got to the specific reasons, and then I started having a hard time tracking. But I do imagine it to being like a Jay Leno, David Letterman, like top 10, but like for really nerdy people, where it's like top 10 reasons we think there's life on Mars. Okay, number 1, like the carbohydrate 14 was the carbohydrate 12. Am I right? Number 2, then people are like laughing along and everything.
That would be pretty entertaining episode of David Letterman. Is that what you said, Trev?
I don't know. I like a David Letterman like. I don't think David Letterman would do it. I'm looking for like somebody at NASA to be doing that, who's like sitting down top 10 reasons.
Yeah. So in conclusion, I think there's compelling reasons to say that there is actually microbial life on Mars. Does anybody disagree?
I'm going with yes. I believe there's life on Mars.
I will concur.
All right. So you have convinced us there's life on Mars, Alan. Well done.
And they look like this.
Or like this.
Or just a little blue man sitting there.
Little naked blue man, his little naked body would appear through my chair hole every once in a while. So
maybe that's what that's the femur that they ran over. He's like, I'm alive. I'm just right here.
I'm here.
The final compelling evidence is this picture behind me, which was taken on Mars.
Curiosity snapped this photo the other day, and NASA's like, oh, we can't run over that. It's going to be harder to get him to back over that one a few times.
Well, Trav, do you want to take us out?
Well, everybody, we'd like to know what you think. Do you believe that there's life on Mars? And furthermore, do you believe that NASA knew about it and covered it up? Because if that's the case, then they owe us a lot. Because
what do they owe us?
Explanations. I mean, they've been covering this up since the 70s. So
more than our lives.
Yes.
I'm okay with it. I support their covering.
But anyway, yeah. Comment below if you're watching us on YouTube here. Let us know what you think. And otherwise, you can always find us on our other social media pages and let us know there as well. Thanks for listening, everyone. Make sure to always wear your alien hats so that the aliens don't read your minds.
Drink from your space mugs.
We will continue our conspiracy theories episodes next week with mine, which again I will leave you hanging in suspense.
No clues.
Nah, no clues. I didn't think about any clues unless you've got a cool clue.
I'm assuming,
Well,
Trev,
Alan's-
with your conspiracy, we're going to have a similar level of scientific evidence.
Oh yeah, it's all
supporting
science.
your point,
All
because the bar has been set now.
Well, it's funny because Trav's conspiracy actually is that there is no carbohydrate 14. There's only carbohydrate 12. So we're gonna dive into
and
that
Alan
next week.
just like
And really,
I mean, like I didn't know that he was going to talk about this.
it's kind of awkward, like how similar they're gonna be.
I like
So tune
how
in
it's
next
turned
time.
from carbon to carbohydrates.
Look,
It's carbon.
I never professed to be a scientist.
So tune in next time when we find out what types of things are in carbohydrates 14s. And yeah, thanks for listening and peace out.